This time at the Quick Speed Shop, we're going to do some engine work on Project F250 Green Machine. Alright, here we go. Now that I've got the frame straightened out and the front clip is all set up, ready to go back on, I want to do some engine work before I do the sheet metal reassembly, because it'll be a lot easier to get to everything I got to do here. So we're going to jump right into it. First thing I want to do with this is I want to put a new timing chain and a new water pump on the front of this engine. This truck's got 166,000 miles on it. It has the original Ford Motorcraft water pump, and I'm assuming the original timing chain, since it doesn't look like any of this has been apart. So what I want to do is put a new timing chain on this just for peace of mind, and replace the water pump because there's a lot going on here. So pretty much this is a serpentine belt system, and the thing you have to do is remove the alternator bracket and tensioner assembly with the air pump from this side of the engine, and remove the power steering pump and AC compressor bracketry from that side of the engine, and then everything will be accessible to pull the timing cover off and to change the water pump and put the timing chain on. So I'm not going to show you all the steps for everything because it'll take forever, but I've already went and labeled things like this water hose that goes to the throttle body. I labeled the top throttle body, and the vacuum hoses that went to the throttle body with the solenoid here. I've already removed these and I've labeled them all. I'm actually going to replace all these lines because they're pretty rotted, but I've labeled them and set them aside. And also I'm getting poked by the AC line. I'm also going to do things like replace these heater hoses here. All these heater hoses, there's a hose down here. I'm going to put a new upper radiator hose on the engine while I'm at it. New serpentine belt and new idler pulley and all that. So it's pretty simple to blow this apart. It's simple 4 bolts or 3 bolts on the alternator over here, and a couple into the head, and this comes off, and the same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove all this stuff real fast. The belt is off. Here comes a fan. Bam. Pulley. 4 bolts here. Here's your water pump. Get the lower hose with the oil cooler. Couple upper hoses, upper radiator hose with the water neck. So I'll pop these guys off next. There's 3 9/16 headed bolts here in the front. The pivot's on a stud on the water pump here. Bam, this should be loose. I'll wire tie this up out of the way here. The alternator is 3 1/2-inch headed bolts here on the side of the bracket. Here's your serpentine belt tensioner. Here's your idler pulley, which this one is a little crunchy. I have a new pulley to replace this. So the next step, I've also removed the hose from the air pump down here. Here's your air pump. There are 2 1/2-inch headed bolts here, and 1 9/16 headed bolt into the head, and then all this will come off of here. There goes that. Bam, just like that. There we go. Now we got access to the whole front of the engine here. You can clearly see the water pump here. I'm going to replace this, I think it's 5/8 heater hose when I do this. I'm going to also put a new thermostat in. I'm also replacing the lower radiator hose and the oil filter cooler. I've got a new one of these. So you'll see right here on the engine, here's your timing pointer. And I've got to find the mark on the harmonic balancer, which is over here at this time. And I'm going to spin it till it's pointing up here. And we'll find top dead center on this in the time marks, and I'll figure out which spark plug's pointing at number 1. They'll tell us around the number 1 top dead center, and that should be about where the timing chain wants to be lined up. So when we take this apart, the timing marks will be lined up. So we'll go ahead and we'll get a big socket on here. We'll spin this thing around to top dead center on number 1 cylinder, and then we'll remove all this. Now I'm most of the way through my water pump removal. I've run into a problem that I've had before on these Fords. These outer bolts go through the timing cover into the block here on both sides, and the bolts are pretty small. This one's got the pivot, actually just this bracketry rides on it here, and this one is just a long bolt, but the bolts are pretty small. They're 1/2-inch headed, so they're like 5/16 bolts. They get corroded in here, and you go to loosen them up and you end up snapping them. And I'm not having any luck. They're acting real stiff. and I don't want to snap them off in the block. So I'm going to try my Burns-O-Matic. I'm going to try heating the timing cover right here where they pass through on both sides, just a little bit of heat. This is aluminum, so you got to be careful. You can't put a big torch on it, you'll melt the aluminum. I'm going to try to heat these up and see if I can free some of that corrosion up and see if they'll come out. Hopefully this will free up the corrosion enough where I can back this thing out of here. And I think it worked a little bit. I'm going to work this back and forth so it doesn't get all seized up. You got to be aware of this. You don't want to just put like an impact on this and try to blow these apart. You'll break these bolts and then you'll be stuck. You can see how rusty this is, how corroded this is back here. You can see how rusty that was. I'll put a good coating of anti-seize or grease on this before I put it back in. That'll stop that from happening in the future. I heat this guy up on this side and see if we can do the same thing. Alright, see how we did here. This one's a 1/2 inch head. Still tight. Try to work it. Oh. I think it broke. And nuts. Where is it? It broke off in here. It broke off in the... hopefully it'll be sticking out of the block enough where I can get on it. This side is not critical because this side isn't critical because nothing goes on this stud, but that's a bummer that snapped off. But here's the water pump. You can see the back plate here. This you want to save this because that gets reused. And here's the timing cover here. All right, here we go. I got a 15/16 socket on the bolt and the crank, and I've determined, well, it's marked on the cap, the number 1 spark plug is in the back here. So what I have to do is I need to rotate the engine counterclockwise, which is the direction of fire, until I get the timing mark up here, and then we'll check this and see if it's pointing at the number 1 cylinder. If it is, that'll tell me it's top dead center number 1. Then we can pull this damper off and pull the cover off and get to the timing chain. So let me go here and I'll crank it over. I'll get it. We'll check it. Just gonna put this in here and give her a go. Now, since it's a standard transmission truck, it's got to be in neutral, or else we'll be rolling the engine over. Oh, somebody's marked top dead center right here. There you can see this white mark that somebody's marked off, and you probably can't see it out of the camera, but on top of here there's markings, and it says before top dead center 30 degrees, 20 degrees, and he's actually got it marked on 10. Okay, so top dead center is actually over here just a little bit more. I got to crank it. Okay, right there is top dead center. This is marking 10 degrees. So right here is top dead center. So now I'm going to take the distributor cap loose. I'm going to have a little look-see, and it'll either be pointing at number 1 or it'll be 180 degrees out. Okay, we're pointing at number 1. So that tells me this is on top dead center, and we're ready to pull off the damper. Okay, now I've assembled my 3-bolt puller onto the damper. I've used a flat surface piece here. It's pushing against the bolt and the crank, which is loose, and I've got 2 bolts in here. So this should just crank right down on here and start to pull the damper off. Alright, I had to get a screwdriver here to hold the bolt and the crank because it wants to spin. Hopefully I can run the puller here, have it push on the bolt, start to back the damper off. Alright, it's pressing the damper off the crank by using the bolt as leverage. There's the crank bolt here. The damper should pull right off. There we go. You can see the end of the crank. Seems to have a lot of oil in it. But here's your damper. So there we go. We got the damper removed. The timing cover is next to come off, and then we'll examine the timing chain. So I got left is I got 4 bolts on the face of this cover, and I've got 2 bolts up from the bottom of the oil pan on each side, and then we can pull this timing cover off. Here's the timing cover. There's that broken off bolt here. Here's the front of our engine. Now this is where you don't want to drop anything down in the engine. That'd be bad. But here's the timing chain. It's actually not hardly sloppy at all, but this is going to be an excellent time to change it. Alright, so you can see here, see these 2 dimple dot marks? These are the timing marks, and they're lined up now, which is good because they put on top dead center, so they should be lined up, and it's on number 1. So what I got to do is get the bolt out of the camshaft here, and that'll allow this to the gears and the chain to come off. And I've got a new gear and chain with a coils double roller chain to go on it here. Now with the cam bolt out, you can see this is keyed here, and there's a hole here at the bottom. Let's watch. This should pull right off the snout of the crank and the cam as I work it together, like so. Just work it. Here we go. Bam. There's your timing chain, old timing chain. So you can see here now we've got the crank, and we've got the cam with this roll pin. Here's your distributor shaft. Here's your drive off the front of the cam to drive your distributor. Your oil pump is directly down from this. The drive is down here, and the oil pump's down here in the pan. So it's as easy as just taking the new set and putting it right on the front of the engine. All right, got my new coil set here. This is a double roller. Oh, don't drop everything. The crank gear, which you can do variable timing with. It's got 3 keyways, but we're going to use the one with the circle. It's for factory straight up lineup. And if you wanted to advance or retard the timing, you could use these other keyways. But we're just going to put it back in straight up. Got the new double roller chain. Make sure the marks are lined up here. The dots are lined up here. Everything's good. I'll go ahead and I'll get the torque spec. I'll torque the bolt down, but that's as simple as that is. With the time marks lined up, put the new timing set on, and you're ready to go. Alright, I'm getting my gasket set out. One thing I always do with a damper is, see this ring worn in here? Can you see it? Where is it? See the ring worn in here? That's where the old seal, the old timing cover seal would run on that ring, and they make a kit called a sleeve and seal for these, which consists of a little sheet metal seal that drives over the top of this damper, and it locks on there and gives you a new surface. So what I'm going to do is just shine this up, get all the debris off it with some Scotch-Brite down here, and then I'm going to Loctite this new piece on, and then the seal will have a nice new spot to seal on, and you won't have any leaking at your crank. You don't want your crank to leak. That's what she said. It's cleaned up real shinied up nice up there. You get a little bit of red Loctite they supply you with. What I'll do is just put some in the surface of the seal. And it just Loctites it on here. Spread it around there. You want to get this straight and press on here. Find something to tap it with. This flat piece of truck front end here. I'm just going to tap her down. That's it. Boom. And we got a brand new surface for our seal to ride on. I'm ready for reassembly. I've got my new gasket shellacked and put on both sides here. I'm just making a little bit of RTV down in the corners where it meets the pan gasket. I'm reusing the stock pan gasket on the bottom because it's a one-piece molded rubber one with crushed sleeves. It's real high quality. Better than cork. I'll work it down. Alright, here we go. We're ready for the water pump install. So I got my gasket on. I got it shellacked up. I bought a Ford Motorcraft replacement water pump, and it's got the steel plate on the back which it comes with, but some of the water pump replacements don't come with the plate and you've got to remove it from your stock, your original water pump. So I went ahead and I removed this one, and I'm going to save it for the future in case I need one again. But I got this thing ready to go on. I've gone and taken my bolts and I've cleaned them all up. I left them in the old water pump so I know which ones go where. I'm just putting a little bit of grease on the bolts where they go through the aluminum so they don't corrode up. So help keep them nice. They're bare steel bolts and aluminum. A little wheel bearing grease. Get these top bolts started here. Alright, now those are the bolts that go into the timing cover by itself. The other bolts go into the water or the block, and I don't think they go in the water jacket, but what I'm going to do is I got some Permatex pipe sealer. I'm going to put some pipe sealant on the threads just in case they go into the water jacket. I'll lube them nice. This is Teflon that will seal these bolts up good. I'm also going to put some grease on the rest of the shaft here so I won't have rust issues like last time where I broke that bolt off. So this will send these home. This is the one here that goes up top that holds the bracketry for the AC and the power steering. Get that guy started. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side to get this all bolted up in here and it'll be sealed up nice. Alright, bam, there we go. It's just that easy. New timing chain, new water pump. All I got to do now is put the damper back on, but I painted it black. I got that drying. What I'm going to do before I button all this up is I got some Ford engine gray. I'm going to paint the whole front of the engine, all this bare metal exposed here, with Ford engine gray and take it back to the factory that way, and it'll look nice under here under the hood. So this gets the mechanicals back together on the front of the engine. The next time I'm going to tackle changing the exhaust manifold bolts, which are rotted on this side and I got an exhaust leak, so we're going to have to fight with those and put new exhaust manifold bolts in this thing and some gaskets. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm putting out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Hit the bell for alerts. Tell your friends. And I'll see you right back here at the Quick Speed Shop for more Ford truck green machine action next time.